Some have described white supremacy as the narrative of racial difference. And I appreciate that description because it uses the word narrative. And we've talked about white supremacy as a myth. White supremacy is a story. White supremacy is a story that has been told and retold about human dignity and the way it falls along racial lines. And to me, that is a sort of captivating definition, because if white supremacy is a story, a very powerful one, one that's been communicated very effectively, but fundamentally a flawed one, an evil one, a sinful one, then there is a better story to tell. And I think that is the project of Jude 3, Courageous Conversations, each of our ministries, and for so many Black Christians and allies, is to tell the better story, which begins all the way back in Genesis chapter 1, about human beings being made in the image and likeness of God, as Akemini has pointed out, not just individually, but collectively, not just bearing the image, but we are the image, right? And so white supremacy has taken this beautiful narrative that God has written and twisted it in order to capture power and maintain power, in this case, through racial lines. And I don't know what other questions you're going to ask, so forgive me if I'm overstepping, but I think it's important to recognize the effects of white supremacy, which are multiple, but two that I'll mention. One, white supremacy erases ethnicity. And by this, I mean for white folks, right? We often think of white supremacy in the ways it affects Black people and other people of color, but in that journey of people of European descent across the Atlantic to the shores of North America, when they stepped onto the land originally inhabited by many other people that would eventually become the United States, they traded their ethnic and national heritage and background for a race called white, which lumped them all together. So you were no longer French or British or Italian or whatever, and even other groups that originally were excluded on some level eventually became white. And they lost in that exchange a musical culture, a linguistic heritage, a history of their own nation and their own people. And they traded it for whiteness because, as historian David Roediger has written a book called The Wages of Whiteness, whiteness is a currency. It's valuable, it gets you stuff here in a white supremacist society. And then the other thing that white supremacy does is it creates this opposite and inferior, supposedly inferior category of Black or Blackness. And that's also what catches up all other people of color, right? So Black is the extreme, but if you are anything other than what is considered white, which has changed over time, then you are not white or of color, which always puts you in some sort of inferior relation to that which is standard or normative.